The Rwandan government says it rejects the accusations against Rwanda Defence Force made by the extraordinary summit of the Southern African Development Community that was held in Harare, Zimbabwe this past Friday. In a statement released yesterday, Rwanda further stated that it supports a political solution to the ongoing war in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Tensions between the South African and the Rwandan governments heightened after 14 South African Defence Force soldiers were killed in the eastern part of the DRC. To discuss what this means for the ongoing conflict in the DRC, we're joined by Doctor Kingsley Makhubela, risk analyst and former diplomat. Dr. Makhubela, thank you. Thanks very much for joining us here on the program.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Leah.
Perhaps we can focus a little on the statement that was released by the government of Rwanda yesterday, which stated, amongst other issues, that they had discovered documents and evidence of attack preparations in Goma. In the DRC government included the FDLR, together with foreign forces, were not limited to defeating the M23, but also to launch an attack in Kigali. Talk to us. What is going on?
You know, Leanne, the tide has turned against Rwanda. The Rwandese really keep on denying that they are in the DRCs, neither here nor there. The tide has shifted and they need to give commitments about their withdrawal. Of course, the M23 and all rebel forces are emboldened and they are moving now towards other provinces, and they are posing a threat. Of course, their mission, they're saying, is eventually to go and attack Kinshasa and take over Kinshasa. The statement that has been issued out by the government in Rwanda yesterday, it doesn't deal with the thrust of the problem and their commitment to ensure that Eastern DRC is pacified. They need to make a commitment in that respect to give guarantees to everyone, or else they're going to keep on becoming pariah state. The Germans have started to withdraw their developmental aid, and Rwanda depends so much on developmental aid around the world.
I mean, this is it's a very difficult situation, and of course, the outcomes of the SADC Extraordinary Summit of Heads of State and Government held in Harare, it did note with concern the recent attacks by the M23 armed group and Rwanda Defence Forces on the government forces of the DRC, the Sami-DRC, and the civilian population in various areas of northern Kivu. But this has been rejected by the Rwandan government. They are still insistent that they're not involved with M23. What is your understanding of the situation?
You know, Rwanda has made a commitment to ensure the ceasefire in Goma, and that commitment is holding. So that really negates what they are denying. That's one. It's known that Rwanda has a great deal of influence, at least from where I'm sitting, over the M23. And they must exercise their influence to persuade the M23 to play the ball in this respect. Continue to deny this, it's really tarnishing their image. I think that's what they need to manage. Leanne, the other thing that I think the SADC should have dealt with, it's a commitment for negotiations and to make specific reference to M23. Because M23 is a major role player in that conflict now, and we know that President Tshisekedi has refused to meet with the M23. He didn't even attend the meeting in Harare, which was a bit unfortunate, because other heads of state left whatever things they are doing to go and attend to this, because they saw it as a priority. He didn't turn up, instead he connected virtually. So it tells the story of the man is not committed to any negotiations. The East African is not the East African community too. But one thing positive that came out of the Harare meeting is a joint summit of the East African community and the SADC community, because there's been parallel processes to try to resolve this. And there are different messages that are communicated to the Congolese, the Rwandese from different regional groups, and it has allowed President Tshisekedi to cherry pick what he wants from which regional group and stay with that. I think it would help to channel the resources of mediation if they all agree.
Let's look at the Sami-DRC, the peacekeeping force that is there, where the South African soldiers have been deployed. I mean, I think we're talking, I heard a figure of about 3,000 of our SANDF members have been deployed there as a peacekeeping mission together with Tanzania and Malawi. 14, however, have lost their lives of South Africans, and this is where the problem is coming in. There are countries like Angola, Zimbabwe, and Namibia who refuse to send troops there because they know what the consequences were for them in previous times. I think it was in the early 2000s that you so beautifully put in your City Press article. You go into the depths of that. But let's talk about the decision of South Africa to be there. Are we equipped enough? Can we handle this? Because we've been getting so many different responses from the South African government with regard to our troops being there, but we've got soldiers that are dying, and this is the reality. We don't know if they're going to, when their bodies are going to be coming home, and what we do know is that there's no plan to bring them out there, the full troops. What are your views on this?
Leanne, if you look at the mandate of the Southern African mission to the DRC, so the SADC mission is not a peacekeeping mission. That's made quite clearly in the documentation, the founding documentation, and the decisions that were taken in Windhoek in 2023. It's a mission to go and support the government of the Congo, to deal with rebel group and to create peace and stability in Eastern DRC. So they have a mandate, an offensive mandate going there. It's not a peacekeeping mission. The peacekeeping mission is that of the United Nations, which South Africa also participates in it. You know, we've lost, unfortunately, 2 soldiers from that peacekeeping mission. So that's a peacekeeping mission with clear mandate from the Security Council, and they're operating under Chapter 7, which is a very enforcement chapter. Now, is the SADC mission legitimate in the DRC? It is indeed. It went there, as the documents are saying, under the rubric of the joint security or joint defense that is there within the SADC. And that is allowed in terms of international law. It's contained in Chapter 7 of the UN Charter, Article 51, that joint security arrangements are allowed. So that's what the mission is there. The fact that, Leanne, we've lost some soldiers now is really regrettable. And I think now all efforts should be made to bring the mortal remains of the soldiers back. My only concern is that the day they arrive in the country, the level of anger is going to spike, because it will dawn on all South Africans that we've lost some of our best in the Congo. And those questions will keep on arising as to why and what were they doing there. So I think government must put in place a strategy to channel the anger, so that you don't get all this rhetoric we're hearing in the country that we must go to war, we must do that. There must be sensible leadership to resolve the problem with Rwanda. Leanne, we trained some of Rwandese helicopter pilots in this country. We can't go to war with the same. So there's something that went wrong. We must restart the relationship with Rwanda.
Well, this public spat that we are seeing between President Kagame and President Cyril Ramaphosa, what you do go on to say is that this should be nipped in the bud very, very quickly, because this can escalate at a very fast rate. Talk to me about this. This is it's a volatile situation, and one that we don't necessarily want to be seeing playing out in the public sphere, which is what it's doing right now. And you're rightly saying that, you know, when those bodies do arrive back in the country, whenever they do, this is going to create even more anger for South Africans seeing soldiers that have lost their lives in this conflict.
The public spat, you know, I'm glad that President Ramaphosa did not respond to the tweets by President Kagame. But I do think that he must make efforts to reach out diplomatically to resolve the situation. I do still think, Leanne, that what Minister Motshekga said was lost in the translation. I don't think there was a real meaning that the threat has been given to President Kagame. I don't think that was the idea. And I think the fact that the president has moved reference to Rwanda Defence Force as a militia, it's indicative that this was a mistake. And I think it has to do with quality control. I do think that people who are dealing with any document that goes out in the name of the president, they have to pay detailed attention to every word. It was badly written. There should be a comma somewhere and starting a new sentence somewhere. And that's where the problem is. So the absence of that comma or a full stop has definitely sent the wrong message. And I think the president should send a special envoy to go and speak to President Kagame and try to restart the relationship. It's unfortunate what President Kagame said and how he described his colleague. I don't think that's how heads of state should deal with each other. And And President Ramaphosa is quite correct to keep quiet, perhaps deal with this thing within diplomatic channel. My view, Leanne, is that Kagame should have asked his ambassador to go and seek clarity on those two contentious issues that led to his outburst. The situation could have been better resolved.
Mm-hmm. Well, that should be interesting. But he did call President Ramaphosa a liar on social media. So this is a very difficult one. And heads of state going there is one we don't necessarily want to see. And what we have heard now is that the SADC summit has called for the immediate dispatch of ministers of defense, chiefs of defense, and troop contributing countries to the DRC to ensure that the SAMI DRC troops are safe and facilitate immediate repatriation of the deceased troops and those who are injured. What are some of the diplomatic processes involved in the repatriation process? Because I am sure that the families want the remains of their family members to be brought back soon. But how long does this take?
I would assume, and that's my expectation, and I'll assume the rest of South Africans would want similar assurances that the bodies of the deceased soldiers are in safe custody of the South African soldiers or South African authority or friendly authority in that environment. We don't even know if the mortal remains of the soldiers are securely kept.
Yeah.
Now, once they're securely kept, it's basically a military process to start repatriating them back into the country. I'm just worried about the problem of electricity in the area and so on, that we don't want to receive decomposed bodies. I hope they are better kept. And I think families of those people will be very happy to know that their remains are well preserved for a decent burial here. There are some cultural related matters in terms of burial that ought to be observed. And I think it will be important to do that. I don't know, Leanne, what our ministers of defense going to do there. This is a military solution. There's a military approach, because our forces in Goma should start to be negotiating in earnest with the M23 who are in control of Goma for the movement of these bodies. And there must be commitment made to us. I know at least it would be better for South Africa to negotiate with M23 as opposed to the Congolese authority who have refused to have any contact with the M23. So I think we should take initiative, our general who's in charge of our police, of our soldiers there, to really secure the bodies and ensure that they are repatriated back home as soon as possible.
Very quickly, last, and I mean very quickly, do you think that our soldiers should remain there? Or do you think it's time to reconsider South Africa's stance in this?
A joint security is part of the protocol of the SADC. I think the decision to take them there should be observed. We can't, each time we go to conflict, we have casualties and we decide to withdraw. We won't be a reliable partner globally. I think it's very important to keep our weight, whatever the reasons, whatever shortcomings we made, but we must keep our weight as a country. That's very important. And it has nothing to do with an individual, because it's going to haunt future generation. We won't be a reliable partner in the conflict resolution.
All right, so we stay. That was the opinion of Dr. Kingsley Makhubela, risk analyst and former diplomat, talking to us about those developments in the DRC conflict.